Your pension election can be a $1 million decision. And while this may seem like an exaggeration, we want to show you a case study today and really unpack the math in this case study to show you why the claim itself isn't as ridiculous as it may first sound. We'll show you a couple where one employee is a female retiring from FirstEnergy and show you the differences in her pension options that she's given at retirement. And we'll play that out over the course of a 25 or a 30-year retirement, and then show you the numbers behind that and explain again why this decision that you make when it comes to choosing your pension option is going to be one of the more significant financial decisions that you make in your lifetime. And yes, we'll show you the numbers of how this can be a $1 million plus decision. We'll also explain how you can put yourself in position to make sure that you're making the decision without disinheriting your loved one, specifically your spouse. And by doing so, you're making sure that you're providing for them in the event that you do have a premature death. We'll wrap it up why planning is so important and what you should be considering and doing as you're getting ready to make this decision to retire from FirstEnergy. If we haven't met yet, I'm Danny Cieniewicz. I'm a CFP Professional at Hyperion Financial. This video is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as investment advice. This video does not reflect the opinions of FirstEnergy Corporation, and this video has not been reviewed or endorsed by FirstEnergy Corporation. In our prior video, we talked through the pension options that are available to a retiring FirstEnergy employee and discussed in detail really what those differences are and how those options work. If you haven't gotten a chance to review that, that's a great place to start. I'm going to link to that here as well so that you can see that video if you're unfamiliar what the pension options are and how to go about choosing a pension option. Today, we want to discuss the differences between choosing that Max Single Life Annuity versus choosing an option that leaves the most to a surviving spouse, the 100% Joint Survivor Annuity, and really explain what the difference is on both a monthly basis, but again, see what that would look like over the course of a 25 to a 30-year retirement. So let's get into the actual case study itself. We have a female employee who is age 64, and she is in excellent health, and she was looking to retire at age 64. Her husband, a male, is age 63, in good health, and has been working, but considering retirement at or near age 65. And lastly, this employee has worked at FirstEnergy, so far has racked up 38 years of service, and had recently been making about $100,000 a year prior to any type of bonus that she would have received. We covered many of the things that we typically cover in a meeting such as this and went through many of the things we discussed in our prior video, such as her health, her spouse's health, and then we also unpacked the other savings that they have, whether it be in retirement, their Social Security election numbers, and if she and her husband had planned to do any type of work in retirement after leaving FirstEnergy Corporation. Another big factor to consider is healthcare costs, which again, we did cover with the employee, but for today's video, we're not really going to go into detail with any of those. The purpose of this video is to really get into how the lifetime income works and why making the decision of a Max Single Life Annuity can be so much more impactful than just making the 100% Joint Survivor Annuity. So based on those facts, she was able to run the FirstEnergy retirement pension benefit estimate and was able to get her what her figures looked like. When we ran that estimate, she was able to provide the following. And we were able to see for her specifically what were the differences between that Max Single Life Annuity and all the other options available to her. As you can see here, there are the standard options that she has available to her. But what we really want to focus on today is the Single Life Annuity number and also the 100% Joint and Survivor Annuity number. Because again, it's the difference between the maximum that you're eligible to receive versus the maximum that you could leave to your spouse in the event of a premature death. What we can see is the difference between that Max Single Life Annuity and the 100% Joint and Survivor option is just over $770 a month. And for a retired couple whose FirstEnergy pension is going to make up a significant portion of their income, $770 is a significant amount of money. But what we also want to keep in mind is this couple, if they're planning to live a long time in retirement, they could see themselves looking at $770 a month for 25 to 30 years. So how do we come up with that figure? So what we actually use is the longevity illustrator on the American Academy of Actuaries. So we were able to show this to the client and explain to them, this is really what you can expect based on actuarial figures. This is the law of large numbers. Obviously, we have no idea exactly how to pin it down for your specific situation, but being that she's in excellent health, let's take a look at what the longevity illustrator shows us. We can get a pretty good idea that she has a pretty high likelihood of being able to make it to at least age 89, which would represent a 25-year retirement. She also has a 1 in 3 chance essentially to make it to age 94, which would represent a 30-year retirement. These figures are something that we want to keep in mind when it comes time to making her pension election decision. Obviously, we also want to keep in mind the situation for her spouse as well. If we know her spouse does not have a long time to live for health reasons or otherwise, we then can make a clearer decision of which option she should choose. This also works in reverse. If she is unhealthy and she has some type of illness, which we don't think that she'd make it a very long time, we can then look at an option that would favor more the spouse receiving the maximum benefit. But being that she is in good health, we want to then run the numbers to see what it would look like if she were to choose the Max Single Life Annuity as opposed to choosing the 100% Joint Survivor Annuity. And as we can see here, over just a 25-year time period, the difference of $770 a month over a 25-year time period is a total of $231,000. So that's money that could be in her pocket, which instead is going to stay in the FirstEnergy pension system if she makes it that long. Now, if she were to choose some type of pop-up option, that could obviously affect the numbers differently. But being that we're looking at just these two comparisons, the Max Single Life Annuity and the 100% Joint Survivor option, you're talking a pretty significant difference over a 25-year retirement. If we stretch it out to 30 years, as you can imagine, that number becomes even more significant. We're looking at $277,200 that she could have received if she chose a Max Single Life Annuity as opposed to the 100% Joint Survivor. Now, these numbers may fall short of the $1 million that maybe we discussed at the beginning of the video, but let's also keep in mind that these are dollars of the difference that could be invested. And if they're invested at an 8% average return, well, now you're talking that the numbers could actually go up quite significantly. The way that we're able to determine this is by using a future value calculator. So we were able to run these future value calculations. What we would want to do is multiply 25 by 12. That'll give us a total of 300 months. The difference in monthly income, the $770 a month, would then earn that 8% return because, again, that's the difference in which we're talking about here. 25 years, you've actually eclipsed the $700,000 mark. And again, if we look at it over the course of 30 years, which based on the longevity illustrator, she could have about a 34% chance of living, she'd be looking at over $1.1 million of a difference. So the difference really can be staggering if we consider factors like this. Now, again, does that mean that she would have to invest these dollars? Not necessarily. We're making an assumption there. We're also making an assumption that she could get an 8% return. Again, that's not guaranteed by any means. But I do think the broader point being this decision isn't just necessarily one that you should gloss over. This is one that you should be putting a lot of planning into. And that's really what comes into play next. Because in order to make this decision, you need to make sure that your spouse's income is accounted for before you can go ahead and just choose that Max Single Life Annuity. Yes, absolutely, it can make a lot of sense if we know this employee will live 30 years in retirement and make it to age 94. But what happens if she dies 1 year into retirement and her spouse lives 30 years? In that case, the pension that she was receiving from FirstEnergy, if she chooses that Max Single Life Annuity, is gone. And really, there's only 1 year of enjoyment that the spouse could actually have. Fortunately, for most FirstEnergy employees, the FirstEnergy pension isn't the only piece of the retirement income puzzle. There are also things like Social Security between both her and her spouse and the retirement savings that they've accrued. What becomes really important is to understand that in order to really make a decision like this, you need to have those other types of vehicles such as Social Security and your 401k plan or whatever retirement savings plan that you have working in conjunction with the pension plan. By making this type of decision, you need to also have a stress test to make sure that if you're able to choose that highest Max Single Life Annuity, what happens in the event of a premature death? Are you able to then provide for your spouse over the course of a 30-year retirement or more for that matter? But if you're able to then coordinate all these plans together, you can look at options that would allow you to choose a higher pension option And again, over the course of a lifetime, be able to enjoy more income, whether that be used by you or passed on to your heirs. That's an option. That's something that if you plan properly, you can enjoy the benefits of. But to be clear, this case study is simply meant to illustrate how important planning and choosing the appropriate pension option can be. Despite the figures shown, it's rare that we actually recommend someone select a single life annuity. This video is meant to give you a better understanding of how important such a decision can be to your retirement. If you haven't yet, now would be a good time to subscribe because we do cover options like this for FirstEnergy employees and retirees in general. By subscribing to the channel, you'll make sure that you're finding more information in which we talk about some of the options available to pre-retirees and to retirees to make sure that you're getting the most out of your retirement plan. We'll also talk in future videos relating back to the pension of things like tax planning, how to coordinate with Social Security and your 401k plan, and other information that's helpful and relevant to retirees. If you haven't yet done so, feel free to check out our website, HyperionFP.com, where we cover more information for FirstEnergy employees and retirees in general. My team and I focus on this type of planning to make sure that retirees are in position in which they can make these types of decisions, while also making sure that they're leaving a legacy for both their spouse and their heirs should they choose to do so.